your hands in the air. It's
Dr. Do, Dr. Do.
Mixing sodas with the beer. It's
Dr. Do, Dr. Do.
So why don't everybody cheer it?
Dr. Do, Dr. Do.
This is the one right here.
Throw your hands in the air. It's
Dr. Do, Dr. Do.
Mixing sodas with the beer. It's
Dr. Do, Dr. Do.
So why don't everybody cheer it?
Dr. Do, Dr. Do.
This is the one right here.
You got
What is y'all, your social media platform artist and the host of the great YouTube channel. I'm your host, your one and the only Dr. 2 here, everybody. How are we on this wonderful Sunday evening right here, y'all? Today's video, I'm going to give you guys another history, military history right here, y'all. Today, we're going to be doing some countries, alright? Country military right here. We're going to talk about the country and also, get this, about their military. In this video, I want to talk to you guys about this one right here, about military that countries that lie about their military power. All right? No, literally, we need to talk about countries that lie about their strength and their military and stuff. The reason why I want to talk about this, I find it completely crazy about countries that think they're big and strong and stuff. All right, y'all. I'm gonna give you guys something that interests because we have seen military countries with military power where they show up in their military parade and stuff like we see all over the world from the nation. But in this video, I want to talk to you all about that because I want to talk to you all about the reason why the country lie about their military stuff. All right, y'all. So before we get started, if you guys new to the YouTube channel, please subscribe to the channel, hit notification down below, comment down below, see what you guys think. And also, guys, please follow me on Instagram. We're about to hit 50K followers on Instagram, y'all. We got about a couple more. We got like 10 to 20 followers left to hit 50K, y'all. If we hit 50K this week, I'm gonna make you guys the ultimate 50K special right here, y'all. So you guys would like this one, alright, y'all? If you guys want Dr. Do merch, go to Content Bureau to give you guys Dr. Do drinkwares, shirtware, glassware. So that this beauty right here, y'all, to give you guys the representing this channel right here, y'all. If you guys want something that will give you enough energy, hydration, and keep you guys focused, and also give you protein and stuff, well, go to Beat Chart to give you guys Dr. Do protein powder, chocolate right there, and hydration, and also energy powders right here, y'all. Sour gummy, which is so good, and also cotton candy energy powders, y'all. Alright, y'all? Are you guys ready for this? Hold on a second. So, without further ado, y'all, never forget let's get this party started. So, first country I want to talk about is the first country that lie about their military and stuff, and also how they were preparing to face off their neighbors. We're going for our first country we need to go to is South Vietnam. So you guys might have heard about South Vietnam history and stuff. Let's get to that, alright? South Vietnam was formed right after Vietnam territory, the territory of Vietnam, declared independence from the French colonial leadership, alright, y'all? Which led to the conflict between the Vietnamese forces led by Ho Chi Minh and his Vietnamese forces, known as the Viet Minh, the independent group that wanted to be independent and also trying to establish a communist nation, which led to him to winning the war against France and won independence. But however, after that, the U.S. decided to split Vietnam, North and South, which Viet Minh, Ho Chi Minh basically agrees upon. Which forms North and South Vietnam, but it also, during the Cold War, South Vietnam would try to build up their military and also their government leadership under the United States leadership, under different military personnel leadership, including South Vietnam have been through a lot of changes from the 1950s to the Vietnam War, because we had seen a lot of military problems over there. It also leadership, because there have been multiple coups that happened from somewhere around the early 1960s to 1965. we play one of the biggest roles of South Vietnam military from problems of fighting and stuff. So there have been many corruption that happened over the South Vietnamese government, like how they use their funding and stuff. And also, following the Vietnam War, U.S. had been trying to train South Vietnamese forces in order to combat with North Vietnam and also the Viet Cong. But however, following the 1974 following U.S. withdrawal from South Vietnam, leaving South Vietnam alone. But however, the U.S. did tell us that they trained the South Vietnamese army with great weaponry and equipment, and also trained them to combat against North Vietnam and stuff. But however, in following the withdrawal from South Vietnam, North Vietnam evaded in 1975, launched an attack on South Vietnam, and also within the next past week, North Vietnam was taken over by North Vietnam. It seemed that South Vietnamese forces didn't have that many forces at all, or even including the fact that they didn't have that much training at all. And also fundings by the U.S. government. Many people said that South Vietnamese government was to blame for it, which makes sense because they didn't really have that many forces, or including the fact that they didn't have no U.S. assistance because they had the U.S. military fighting for the South Vietnamese government instead of South Vietnamese government fighting with the United States. Which makes sense because we've been seeing more U.S. soldiers fighting against the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong more than South Vietnam forces as well, because they've been watching us fighting for them. Alright, y'all? Do you see where I'm going here? And also, by the time we were withdrawing from the U.S. from South Vietnam, it became a problem for South Vietnam to handle their own fight against North Vietnam. So without U.S. aid or military equipment, Vietnam collapsed to the North Vietnamese forces and became united with North Vietnam and under communist rule. It's tragic for them to know. It's tragic that without U.S. military, then the country that been backing the United States will collapse without any support. But it's crazy. Am I right, y'all? And then we get to another country right here, Russia. I want to talk to y'all about Russia right there. They are liars. They lie about their military all the time, alright? I want to talk to y'all about that because ever since before the Ukrainian war, before the Russian-Ukrainian war, we always been feeling about Russia might dominate Europe and stuff, and also feeling about their technology they have been building up in their military under the leadership of Vladimir Putin. So, what happened after following the war in Ukraine? They say that Vladimir Putin said they going to manage to capture Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, within the next week, but they didn't. Somehow they got delayed and stuff. So, and also following that delay and stuff, they've been getting hit hard by not just by Ukrainian forces, but also drone attacks and all of that stuff. It seems that the Russian military have basically proven that they were not as strong as they claimed to be either, because think about it, they lie about their military and their technology that they've been building, but in actual reality, Russia lie about their military equipment because they've been using quote-unquote old Soviet military equipment all this time, because they have not had any technology. They cannot find any manufacturing company to get the kind of technology, which you see many Russian forces using old Russian AK-47, old World War II Soviet Union helmets, including old Russian tanks like the obsolete T-72, T-64, T-66, and T-55s in battle. It makes a lot of sense why many people were overreacting about the Russian military, alright? And also, Russia had managed to lose a lot of men in that war from 2022 to 2025 right now. Do you know how many people that died in the Russian-Ukrainian war, on the Russian side, over 1 million men are either died in a conflict or wounded, man. We haven't seen 1 million casualties on the Russians, on any modern day military side at all since like World War II, right there, y'all. Do you see where I'm going? Vladimir Putin claimed that his military is stronger than the United States, but we don't see that because they lied to us. Most of their forces were not as trained as they were claimed to be at all. They also used forcing many men into armed military personnel. They also claimed the fact that you didn't have as many men you claimed to have, alright? And so you decided to conscript many men from the Russian villages or cities because you didn't really have that many you claimed to be, alright? And that's why you see millions of these men who fought for Vladimir Putin and getting shot at or getting hurt or including the KIA in battle. And also Vladimir Putin till this day is still demanding for Ukraine to surrender. But they are not going to surrender to a country that is losing a freaking war. I mean, really, come on. Vladimir Putin should know this, that he's not winning the war. He's losing the war right now. And also losing many generals in combat against Ukrainian drones, alright? Vladimir Putin should just surrender, but no, it's just that he doesn't want to lose the war or his alter ego right there, y'all. You see here? See what I'm getting here? And then we can get, okay, so next country we are going now into another country in the Middle East. Afghanistan. Afghanistan itself, right there, y'all. This is where we need to talk about this one right here. This country had lied about their military all the way since 2001. In 2001, following the 9/11 event that happened back in September 2001, following U.S. Green light to try to hunt down and capture or kill Osama bin Laden, but they found out that he basically resided in Afghanistan, with many U.S. officials had heard, and also following their overthrowing the Taliban government in 2001, and also releasing a pro-American leadership. It showed it following at the aftermath of death. Okay, never mind. So anyways, following the aftermath of overthrowing the Taliban government, U.S. has established a military base. It also established a pro-American leadership government in the Afghan government, alright? Releasing the Ukrainian Afghan officials, like appointing leaders from different tribes or groups and have them run Afghanistan. So following that, we launched a 20-year war against the Taliban, lasting from 2001 to 2021. Following 20 years, we sent over like billions of dollars of weaponry, training, military advisor to Afghanistan to train the Afghan military to counter against the Taliban insurgency for the past 20 years. But however, following the withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021 under the Joe Biden administration, they did not. Everybody thought at first that the Afghan military that were trained by the U.S. military were going to be taking on a bigger role against the Taliban army right here, because the U.S. told us that Afghanistan had managed to have over 300,000 military personnel, police officers, and multiple military officials are ready to take on the Taliban army and hope that they try to protect democracy in Afghanistan. But however, 3 months after the withdrawal of U.S. military aid and stuff, the Taliban had managed to take over Kabul, Afghanistan, the capital of the country. They managed to capture the nation itself. I'm like, I saw the news about it. I'm like, how did the United States military managed to fail 20 years of fighting against the Taliban? How did we wasted 20 billion something dollars on all the equipment that we have given to the Afghan military stuff? And how did they lose? I tell you why. Because they lie about their army. Let me tell you something right here. Have you ever heard of goat soldier? If you never heard that word, goat soldier, it doesn't mean a soldier that is a ghost, alright? That doesn't mean that. That's fictional. But goat soldier are people that had their names in their military list, in their military ranks. But however, guess what? They were not real. It turned out that most of the 300,000 Afghanistan military personnel and stuff were not even real. Alright? That will explain why we haven't seen no resistance against the Taliban military at all. Because you want to know how many did Afghanistan really have in their military? 50,000 soldiers they had. It wasn't 300,000, it was 50,000 they had. They didn't train all that forces. It turned out that the Afghan military had lied about their military and their size of soldier they had. They didn't have no tanks. They didn't have no personnel willing to defend their nation, because most of them weren't trained as like the U.S. military at all. They were corruption. The leaders of the Afghan government failed its duty from 2014 to 2021. I know who he is, but he failed his leadership and his people by abandoning his people to the Taliban government, and managed to have the Taliban won the war and took over the government again. And now, this is embarrassing. This is one of the most embarrassing things that ever happened to us in the United States history, that we wasted billions of dollars on a war that could have ended a long time ago. But no, we lost the war. We lost the Afghan war because we did not know so much about our allies and what are they doing with their money and stuff. And following after that, the Taliban had managed to gain U.S. military weapons and military vehicles now. And although they managed to got some U.S. military helicopter too, which is embarrassing too. It's tragic that how we spent 20 years fighting terrorists in Afghanistan, which resulted us withdrawing from the nation and witnessing the rise and reclaiming the nation in the name of the Taliban. Really, it's tragic that we didn't manage to we failed to bring back the weapon too. You know, we thought that the Afghan army going to handle them and don't let the enemy take them. But however, we were wrong about not just their size, but also their way of how they handled their own military weapons. Right there, y'all. Tragic, really. And next, we are going to another nation right here. Syria, right here, y'all. You guys know about Syria? Then I would tell you guys all about it, because Syria have been ruled over by the al-Assad regime family right here. You guys don't know this, but before this al-Assad in Syria that we know right now, we need to talk about his dad. His dad been in power since 1970 to 2003. It kind of like, you could say that his family, the former leader of Syria family, are like the Kim Jong-un family right there, y'all. You know, when a father who is the leader of a country passes, he would have his son taking over his place, which we had saw with the family in Syria, which been ruling over the people of Syria for almost 54 years, from 1970 to 2024. That's how long that the Assad family have been ruling over Syria. and also having their nation been embargoed, sanctioned by the UN nation because Syria had been abusing, because the family who rule over Syria abusing their own men, women, and children. It also forces them to fight in their army and stuff. Also, following 2024 war against the pro-American and all the pro-Turkey military back groups, they managed to defeat all the forces in 2024. Really crazy because al-Assad tried to say that he had a better military, but however he too didn't have a stronger military at all, because due to the fact that most of the military, all that equipment stuff that were sent by none other than Vladimir Putin, who was a ally with Syria leaders of al-Assad at that time. All right, y'all. Remember, Russia was an ally with Syria since the Cold War started. Right here, y'all. And since then, al-Assad family had leadership began to crumble into dust and ruining their leadership. And also watching this, and also following the 2024 offensive against his al-Assad family and his leadership, he was forced to leave the nation and reside in Russia because his military wasn't as strong or strong enough to willingness to continue to fight the insurgency that with Syria have been facing for so long since 2014 right here, y'all. It's crazy how this guy, how this family managed to hold Syria under their control for 54 years. It's crazy how Syria was under dictatorship for a long time. Even they didn't realize they were under dictatorship at that time. Alright, y'all? And since then, Syria is now being under new rule, new leadership. All their sanctions, all the embargo that were put on Syria is no longer there no more because Trump had managed to end all that sanction on Syria now. And now we have witnessing relationship with Syria and America now. We see some progress right here. All right, y'all. Whew. What do you think? So, a lot of things to say, huh, y'all? Try to keep up with me, huh? And also, and finally, one more nation I want y'all to know: Iraq. Iraq had lied about their military too, you know. Remember Saddam Hussein? I did a video about him a while back, like a couple weeks ago, about him. Iraq had always been facing a lot of lies with their leadership too. For example, like Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein thought he had one of the most powerful military too. At that time, Saddam military, as the Iraqi Republican Guard, was considered the fourth most powerful nation in the world. At that time, Iraq was considered the most powerful military country in the world as well. But however, due to corruption and also put down by Saddam Hussein and also pressing his people and stuff, he thought his military were doing a lot better than any other military in the Middle East. But however, when the Iraq-Iran war happened, it proved that Iraqi forces were not as strong as they claimed to be too, you know. Because following the disaster war against Iran until 1989, Saddam had to find other ways to try to get his military money and stuff for his country and stuff. He had to go to Kuwait and invade it in 1991. Following out of that, U.S. and the coalition, alongside with other Middle Eastern countries, decided to go war with Iraq. All right, y'all. Following, at the Gulf War right there. Saddam thought his military could beat the crap out of the U.S. and coalition, just like what happened with the U.S. in Vietnam War. But however, U.S. had managed to have better technology and better equipment better than Iraqi and Saddam forces. All right. So when the U.S. launched their attack on Iraq, they proved to Saddam that they're not a military to be messed with. And also, remember his forces that were supposed to be willing to fight for Saddam and Iraq? Well, turned out most of their military officials, including their soldiers, weren't as trained and strong enough to fight for Iraq. Alright, you see millions of men all over Iraq surrendering themselves to the US coalition because most of them are either conscripts, volunteers, and also some of them are Shia volunteers who want to take back Iran from the Iranian regime right there. And also proving Saddam military are not as skilled or willingness to fight for Saddam, including their tanks at that time were obsolete at that time. Like the T-72, they were starting to become more obsolete in the military because they were facing modern day technology tanks like the Abrams tank, the Challenger. See where I'm going here, y'all? It also led to Saddam's whole entire regime military collapsing, forcing him to surrender and accept withdrawal from Kuwait for good. And following after that, he still will remain in power until 2003 when US launched the war against Iraq and overthrowing him. So there you have it. These countries have claimed themselves to be powerful and have one of the most dominant forces in the world. But however, once they send their forces into war against another country, their military force collapsed so easily, or in fact, never were in fact ready for war at all. We've seen this many times with these countries, and they were never going to prove themselves to be a powerful military force unless they have a better leadership, better government staff, and less corruption in their military right here. If they don't have all these at all, this resulted a disaster right here, losing most of their soldiers, equipment, their generals, what we saw with Russia right now, and their willingness to continue the fight right here, y'all. This is a problem that we need to remember this, all right? We need to learn this and study about how the military, the nation with powerful military, which they claim to have, but however they won't. But however they think that they have that all on paper, but when you take it out put it in real life, it does not work out right here. You will lose your power and your dominance in the military as well. If you don't prove yourself, if you don't prove you or your nation or your military that you guys are strong, then you guys make yourself a fool out of yourself for that. All right, y'all. And there you have it. This is my video about countries that lie about their military right here, y'all. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope y'all have a great day. Please subscribe to the channel, hit notifications down below, comment down below, see what you guys think about my opinion about the country, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, peace out, y'all.